Imagine looking at the news and seeing that Antarctica's vast ice sheets, stretching across millions of square kilometers, have vanished overnight. The sheer thought is enough to send chills down your spine, but it's also a hypothetical that highlights the fragility of our planet. Antarctica holds about 60% of the world's freshwater, locked away in its ice sheets. If all that ice disappeared in an instant, global sea levels would surge by over 58 meters, swallowing coastal cities and radically reshaping continents. This sudden event would plunge the world into chaos, starting with immediate flooding. Major cities like New York, London, Tokyo, and Sydney would be submerged underwater. Entire island nations, including the Maldives and Tuvalu, would cease to exist. Coastal regions that support hundreds of millions of people would become uninhabitable within hours. Ports, trade hubs, and airports located near shorelines would be underwater, effectively cutting off vital supply chains and triggering a domino effect of economic collapse. The immediate human cost would be staggering. Hundreds of millions of people would lose their homes in a single night, becoming climate refugees with nowhere to go. Countries already grappling with overcrowding or economic hardship would face insurmountable challenges trying to absorb such a massive influx of displaced populations. The resulting humanitarian crisis would dwarf anything the world has ever seen, putting unbearable strain on international resources and cooperation. In addition to the destruction of coastal infrastructure, the sudden disappearance of Antarctica's ice sheets would wreak havoc on global weather patterns. Ice plays a critical role in regulating the planet's temperature by reflecting sunlight back into space. Without it, Earth's natural cooling system would fail, causing a rapid increase in global temperatures. This albedo effect, as scientists call it, would accelerate warming, making extreme weather events like hurricanes, droughts, and heat waves more frequent and intense. Rivers, lakes, and other freshwater sources would also face contamination from saltwater intrusion, making clean drinking water scarce in many parts of the world. Crops near coastlines would be destroyed, and fertile farmland could turn into salty wastelands. This would jeopardize global food security, driving up prices, and leading to widespread hunger and political instability. The impact wouldn't just stop at sea level rise and flooding. Antarctica's ice sheets also serve as a stabilizing force for Earth's tectonic plates. Their immense weight keeps the crust in balance. If that weight suddenly disappeared, it could trigger a cascade of seismic activity. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions in regions near tectonic boundaries, such as the Pacific Ring of Fire, could become far more frequent, adding another layer of devastation to an already catastrophic scenario. The scale of destruction would be unimaginable, touching every aspect of life on Earth. This what-if may sound like science fiction, but it underscores the very real consequences of ignoring climate change. In the next part, we'll explore the forces driving ice loss in Antarctica and how close we are to tipping the scales toward this apocalyptic reality. While the idea of Antarctica's ice sheets vanishing overnight may seem impossible, the forces driving ice loss are already in motion. To understand the threat, we need to examine the complex interactions between rising global temperatures, shifting ocean currents, and the delicate balance that has kept Antarctica's ice stable for millions of years. This part of the story focuses on what's fueling this slow-motion crisis and why the situation is more urgent than it appears. At the heart of Antarctica's ice loss is climate change, driven by the release of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the late 1700s, human activity has increased these gases to levels not seen in over 800,000 years. As a result, global temperatures have risen by more than 1 degree Celsius since the late 19th century, with significant consequences for polar regions. Antarctica's vulnerability lies in its geography. The continent is surrounded by a vast ocean, and its ice sheets sit atop both land and water. Warmer air temperatures are melting ice from above, but the more dangerous threat comes from below. Ocean currents, altered by climate change, are bringing warmer water into contact with the base of Antarctica's ice shelves. These shelves act as barriers, holding back the massive ice sheets behind them. When they weaken or collapse, the ice sheets can flow into the ocean, raising sea levels. One of the most alarming examples is the Thwaites Glacier, often called the Doomsday Glacier. Located in West Antarctica, it's roughly the size of the state of Florida and holds enough ice to raise global sea levels by over 3 meters if it collapses. In recent decades, the glacier has been losing ice at an accelerating rate due to warm water melting its underside. Scientists estimate that its collapse could begin within the next few decades if current trends continue. Beyond individual glaciers, Antarctica's ice sheets are destabilized by a feedback loop. As ice melts, it reduces the reflective surface area that bounces sunlight back into space, a phenomenon known as the albedo effect. Darker ocean water absorbs more heat, causing further warming and more melting. This self-reinforcing cycle means that once significant melting begins, it becomes increasingly difficult to slow down or reverse. Another factor compounding the crisis is the breakdown of ocean circulation systems, particularly the Antarctic circumpolar current. This powerful flow of water around the continent acts as a buffer, isolating cold Antarctic waters from warmer currents. However, as ice melts and fresh water enters the ocean, it disrupts this delicate balance. Changes in salinity and temperature weaken the current, allowing warmer water to infiltrate and accelerate melting even further. The potential for runaway melting isn't just a distant possibility, it's already visible in some regions. The Amundsen Sea, for example, has seen some of the most rapid ice loss in Antarctica, with several glaciers thinning by up to 9 meters annually. This rapid pace shows that large-scale ice loss can occur much faster than previously believed, raising concerns about how prepared humanity is for such an event. These complex dynamics reveal that Antarctica's ice sheets are not just melting, they're unraveling due to a perfect storm of climate-related factors. The situation is further complicated by the fact that much of the melting occurs in remote and inaccessible areas, making it challenging for scientists to fully monitor or predict the pace of change. Yet the warning signs are clear. Antarctica's ice sheets are approaching a tipping point, and their fate hinges on global actions to curb greenhouse gas emissions. In the next part, we'll delve into the ripple effects that this hypothetical collapse would unleash across ecosystems, economies, and societies worldwide. The impacts would extend far beyond rising sea levels, transforming the planet in ways we might not fully comprehend until it's too late. If Antarctica's ice sheets were to vanish overnight, the immediate aftermath would be catastrophic on a global scale. The most obvious and devastating consequence would be the dramatic rise in sea levels. Scientists estimate that the complete melting of Antarctica's ice could add roughly 60 meters to global sea levels. This would inundate major coastal cities such as New York, London, Tokyo, and Sydney, leaving vast regions underwater and displacing hundreds of millions of people almost instantly. The loss of Antarctica's ice would also create a domino effect across global ecosystems. Coastal wetlands, which act as natural buffers against storms and provide critical habitats for numerous species, would be submerged. These ecosystems are home to birds, fish, and countless other organisms that rely on the delicate balance of salinity and tidal patterns. Their disappearance would disrupt food chains and lead to a decline in biodiversity that could take centuries to recover. Marine ecosystems would also face significant disruption. The cold, nutrient-rich waters surrounding Antarctica play a critical role in supporting life across the Southern Ocean. These waters fuel the base of the food chain, sustaining krill populations that are essential to whales, seals, and seabirds. Without the ice sheets to regulate ocean temperatures and maintain the flow of nutrients, the entire marine ecosystem in the region could collapse, triggering a ripple effect through global fisheries and food supplies. Beyond ecological damage, the vanishing of Antarctica's ice would have profound effects on global weather patterns. The massive ice sheets act as stabilizers for the planet's climate system. Their loss would disrupt atmospheric circulation, leading to more extreme and unpredictable weather events worldwide. Hurricanes and typhoons could become more powerful due to warmer oceans, while prolonged droughts and heat waves would threaten water supplies and agricultural yields in many regions. The sudden addition of trillions of tons of fresh water to the oceans would also disrupt thermohaline circulation, a critical component of the Earth's climate system. This global conveyor belt of ocean currents distributes heat around the planet, moderating temperatures and driving weather systems. If disrupted, regions such as Europe could experience severe cooling despite overall global warming, while other areas like the tropics could become unbearably hot. Economically, the effects of such an event would be staggering. Coastal infrastructure worth trillions of dollars, including ports, power plants, and urban centers, would be lost. Insurance industries would collapse under the weight of unmanageable claims, and governments would struggle to rebuild or relocate entire cities. Global trade would grind to a halt as supply chains heavily reliant on coastal infrastructure are thrown into chaos. The humanitarian crisis would be unprecedented. Hundreds of millions of people living in low-lying areas, from Bangladesh to the Netherlands, would be forced to flee their homes. Refugee numbers would dwarf anything seen in history, straining resources and political systems worldwide. Competition for dwindling resources such as fresh water, arable land, and food could ignite conflicts, further destabilizing already vulnerable regions. Compounding these challenges is the potential release of ancient carbon stores currently trapped beneath Antarctica's ice. As the ice sheets vanish, vast amounts of frozen organic material could thaw and decompose, releasing methane and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This feedback loop would accelerate global warming, amplifying the crisis and making recovery even more difficult. The immediate and far-reaching consequences of this hypothetical event highlight how interconnected our planet's systems are. The loss of Antarctica's ice would not only reshape the physical geography of the Earth, but also challenge humanity's ability to adapt and survive in a dramatically altered world. In the final part, we'll explore what actions can still be taken to prevent such a scenario and how the lessons of today could shape the future of the planet. If the ice sheets of Antarctica were to vanish overnight, the aftermath would serve as a grim wake-up call for humanity, revealing both the fragility of our planet and the urgency of collective action. Such a monumental event would leave no aspect of life untouched, forcing humanity to confront the profound consequences of a dramatically altered Earth. One of the most daunting challenges in the wake of this disaster would be global displacement. Entire nations such as the Maldives and Tuvalu would cease to exist beneath rising waters, and countless coastal cities around the world would become uninhabitable. This would trigger the largest migration crisis in human history. Governments and international organizations would face the unprecedented task of resettling hundreds of millions of refugees, requiring new infrastructure, housing, and resources in already crowded and resource-strained regions. Without coordinated global efforts, competition for survival could lead to widespread unrest and geopolitical instability. In addition to displacement, the loss of Antarctica's ice would have irreversible effects on agriculture and global food security. Fertile farmland would be destroyed by saltwater intrusion as rising seas contaminate soil and freshwater sources. Coastal fisheries, already under pressure, would collapse due to ecosystem disruptions and changes in ocean temperature. Crops dependent on stable climates would struggle to adapt to extreme weather patterns, leading to food shortages and skyrocketing prices. Global hunger and malnutrition would become widespread, hitting vulnerable populations the hardest. The crisis would also lay bare the inequities in the world's ability to respond to such a catastrophe. Wealthier nations with more resources might adapt more easily by building seawalls, relocating infrastructure, and developing advanced technologies. However, poorer countries, often those contributing the least to global emissions, would bear the brunt of the devastation. Entire cultures, histories, and ways of life would be at risk of disappearing forever, highlighting the disproportionate burden carried by those least responsible for climate change. As the world grapples with these challenges, humanity would be forced to reconsider its relationship with the planet. A crisis of this scale would likely accelerate scientific innovation and global collaboration as societies unite to find solutions. Renewable energy technology would become an urgent focus, as reducing greenhouse gas emissions would be critical to preventing further climate catastrophes. Countries would have to move beyond short-term interests and work together to rebuild, adapt, and create systems capable of withstanding the new realities of a transformed planet. Furthermore, the disappearance of Antarctica's ice would offer valuable lessons about the long-term consequences of inaction. It would serve as an undeniable demonstration of how interconnected the planet's systems are and how deeply human activity impacts the natural world. This newfound awareness could inspire future generations to prioritize sustainability, conservation, and environmental stewardship in ways that have previously been neglected. The catastrophic loss of Antarctica's ice would also force a reckoning with humanity's role as caretakers of the Earth. It would demand a shift in mindset from exploiting resources for short-term gain to protecting the planet for future generations. The world would need to develop policies that prioritize resilience and equity, ensuring that no region or community is left behind in the effort to rebuild. In the end, this hypothetical scenario is a sobering reminder of what's at stake if we fail to act. Antarctica's ice sheets are not just a distant feature of the Earth. They are a cornerstone of the planet's stability. While the idea of them vanishing overnight is extreme, the ongoing and rapid loss of ice is a reality we must confront. By taking action now, humanity has the opportunity to mitigate the worst outcomes, protect vulnerable populations, and chart a course toward a more sustainable and equitable future. The choices we make today will shape the planet for generations to come, whether through renewable energy, conservation, or international collaboration. The steps we take can help ensure that the dire consequences of this scenario remain in the realm of what if rather than becoming our reality.